Hey, it's that time again. Time for another episode of Shelved or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for your TBR based solely on their covers. And I'm your host, Daisy X Machina, the drag queen detective who investigates all things speculative in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. This is, of course, the TBR game where I pick at least one book based solely on their covers. I go onto Goodreads, I look at the new releases in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And again, just by looking at the covers, I'll pick one book to add to my TBR. Today, we'll be doing it for the month of July. So let's go ahead and get started with science fiction. And first up, All This and More by Peng Shepherd. This is a simple cover. I kind of like the gold font with that sort of ombre, but what we have here are a series of windows. And, okay, there's little arrows pointing to the windows, so we can sort of follow a story, I guess, maybe. I'm not even sure where we start. I think we start at this one square. There's a dog with a spaceship. There's a circus tent. Okay, I don't know if we actually follow these in a sequence, but we see some mountains, a building that kind of looks like the Taj Mahal, a space shuttle, cards, alien spaceship. I'm kind of liking this. I mean, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, this is going to be really simple. But I like these windows kind of giving us little glimpses, I'm assuming, into the story, which looks like an alien invasion, maybe? A first contact? I don't know. I'm intrigued. I am intrigued. I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. Next up is Whoever You Are, Honey, by Olivia Gatwood. I don't know this author. We have this woman's face that's melting like a house of wax. The colors are kind of muted. I'm not too crazy about this color scheme, and I don't know what this could be about. Is this like a robot, maybe? I mean, we are in science fiction, and sometimes they do mix up a little bit of horror and fantasy and science fiction. So this could be horror. I don't know. I'm not crazy about this cover, especially with the muted colors, and the melting face isn't telling me enough about the story. So I'm going to go ahead and shove it. Next up is Made for You by Jenna Satterwhite. She got The Bachelor, Now He's Dead as a tagline. And I actually do recognize the author's name, but just because she's an agent, a literary agent. So I guess she's also a writer. I like this illustration. I like this really vibrant woman's face. Reminds me of Julianne Moore. I don't know why. And I don't know why it's at an angle, but it's kind of intriguing me. But I just like those vibrant colors, and especially with the sunglasses. So, well, here's the question. I'm not sure what this could be about because I'm thinking AI, but there's a quote here by Megan Collins that says, "The Bachelor meets Black Mirror with a splash of Barbie gone dark." So I guess it's a reality show, maybe, sort of like this Bachelor reality show that goes very, very wrong. I am doing a lot of guessing here, but I like the cover, so I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. Next up is State of Paradise by Laura Van Den Berg. I'm not crazy with how they did her last name like this. I don't like it. I do not like it. What could this be about? We have a forest, and it's very dreary. I guess is that rain or a hurricane or something. I guess since it's science fiction and we see a forest with rain, maybe it's an eco science fiction type story, but no, I don't really like this at all. So I'm going to shove it. And finally, in science fiction, The Family Experiment by Joan Mars. Okay, there's a silhouette of a line of people, but I guess we're supposed to focus on this middle character who doesn't look like they have a head. Everyone else is sort of silhouetted black, but the middle character looks like he has a red jacket. Am I crazy, or is this someone that doesn't have their head? It looks like a headless person. The Family Experiment. I mean, it's a simple cover, and the font's pretty simple, and it's kind of dirty looking with the sort of streaked blackish sky. But I am curious. I'm trying to think of what type of science fiction this could be, and the only thing I'm getting is sort of a genetic experiment with people, and I guess it goes wrong. I am curious. This cover makes me curious, which is what a cover needs to do. So I'm going to shelve it. Now we move on to fantasy. And first up is A Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. I love Lev Grossman. I love the Magician's trilogy. And I am not loving this cover, though. A novel of King Arthur. I am so bored of King Arthur storylines. I just am not interested, and the cover's kind of dull. There's a sword with antlers, so the white stag type motif, I'm assuming. I'm just not interested in another King Arthur retelling, although I do really like this author. But I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Lost Story by Meg Schaffer. There's an illustration of a tree with a door in the trunk area, and there's a bird and a moon. The Lost Story. I like the artwork, but it's not really telling me anything about the story. And I don't like the sort of dingy, dull colors I've been seeing in some of these covers lately. It's not drawing me in, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Blackbird Oracle by Deborah Harkness. And I have read the first novel in Discovery of Witches, which I thought was okay, but it's kind of a paranormal romance, which wasn't my favorite, but a solid writer. And this one's about a blackbird who's an oracle, and we see the blackbird, and it looks like he has some type of talisman in his mouth, maybe. I don't know, a little underwhelmed by the illustration. It's really telling me enough about the story, although I'm assuming it's about witchcraft because of the author. I'm going to have to shove it. And finally, in fantasy, The West Passage by Jared Petchikek. And this is a very busy cover, but there's a lot going on. There is someone seated cross-legged, and it looks like they have like a mask, different type of masks, and 4 arms. And there are other figures around, a woman with a castle on her head, this red woman, this golden-robed birdman, maybe? And there looks like a dark, evil figure. I think these are gods, because way down underneath the white figure with holding the masks looks like little people. So I'm intrigued. I like this cover. I'm getting this is some type of quest with gods, and it has a slight Asian flavor to me. So I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. Now we move on to horror. And Goodreads is a little weird about new released horrors, but they have just refreshed their list. And first on this is Stephen King's You Like It Darker. So Stephen King definitely catches my attention. This cover does not. It's really bad. There's this island, I guess. Well, it's the shape of a crocodile. Okay, there's this crocodile head that's the shape of an island with some palm trees. And there's sort of this dingy water and skyline. I don't know. I don't really like this. I'm going to go ahead and shove it. I am kind of curious that it's a new Stephen King, so if anyone knows anything about this book, let me know down in the comments. Next up is My Darling Dreadful Thing by Joanna Van Veen. There is a figure with a veil and some dead roses, maybe, and there's a spider, and it's very dark. So we're going to say it's a ghost story and kind of gothic, maybe. I don't know. It's not really hooking me. Not this cover. So I'm going to go ahead and shove it. Next up is The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. Now, every once in a while, there is a title that really catches me, and this title made me chuckle, and I like the font it's in. It's like really retro 50s horror font, and everything else is kind of meh. There's a door, and there's like this red light under it, and I don't know. I'm kind of curious about this one because of the retro feel to the font in the title. So I'm thinking this is a haunted house story, maybe that is set in the 50s, or it's reminiscent of sort of that turning of the screw type era. I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. Next up is The Hunter's Daughter by Nicola Solvenick. Her father's sins won't be her own, says the tagline. There is a red silhouette of a stag, and it looks like someone walking in the snow, or you see their footprints. I don't know. Not really drawing me in. And it's kind of reminded me of The Only Good Indian by Stephen Graham, which I really didn't like. It featured deer or stag or something. Anyway, not pulling me in. I'm going to shove it. And finally in horror, and our last book, is The Red Grove by Tessa Fontaine. Looks like there's cliffs and there's trees and a dark sky. The font is kind of spooky, but nothing is drawing me in to want to read this just by the cover. Don't like it at all. I'm going to shove it. Okay, I actually ended up shelving a lot of books. I'm not sure how that happened, but the books are 3 science fiction, All This and More by Pang Shepard, Made for You by Jenna Satterwhite, and The Family Experiment by John Mars. I shelved 1 fantasy, The West Passage by Jared Petchacek, and I shelved 1 horror, The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. Okay, we have a lot going on, but since I did shelve 3 in science fiction, I'm going to go with science fiction this month, especially since I just did 2 months of horror. So I'm going to say no to The House That Horror Built and no to The West Passage by Jared Petchacek. So that leaves us with 3 science fiction. Okay, All This and More by Paying Shepherd. I like these sort of windows and arrows. It's kind of telling me a story. And I think the story is about an alien invasion. Made for You. I'm mostly going, I really like this striking picture of a woman, but I'm really going by this blurbed recommendation by Megan Collins, so I don't know who that is, but it says The Bachelor meets Black Mirror with a splash of Barbie gone dark. She got The Bachelor, now he's dead. How is this science fiction? I guess Black Mirror could just be sort of really speculative. I'm going to say no to Made for You. I'm questioning now what this could be about. On the other hand, The Family Experiment by John Mars. I am very intrigued by the story it's telling me with the silhouette of people and this one that's in the middle that looks like it doesn't have a head. And this one's a little red when the others are dark black. So I'm thinking kind of science fiction horror. And you know what? I'm going with The Family Experiment by John Mars. I don't know why. It's really getting me curious. I really want to read that blurb. It's doing what a cover should do, make me really curious about the story. So let's go ahead, read the blurb, and see what I've gotten myself into. From the acclaimed author of The One and The Marriage Act, The Family Experiment is a dark and brilliant speculative thriller about families, real and virtual. Some families are virtually perfect. The world's population is soaring, creating overcrowded cities and an economic crisis. And in the UK, the breaking point has arrived. A growing number of people can no longer afford to start families, let alone raise them. But for those desperate to experience parenthood, there is an alternative. For a monthly subscription fee, clients can create a virtual child from scratch who they can access via the metaverse and a VR headset. To launch this new initiative, the company behind Virtual Children has created a reality TV show called The Substitute. It will follow 10 couples as they raise a virtual child from birth to the age of 18, but in a condensed 9-month time period. The prize, the right to keep their virtual child, or risk it all for the chance of a real baby. Set in the same universe as John Mars' best-selling novel The One and The Marriage Act, The Family Experiment is a dark and twisted thriller about the ultimate Tamagotchi, a virtual baby. Okay, this is totally not what I thought it was going to be about. I thought it was going to be about genetic experiments, but I should have guessed. It's about virtual families and AI, I guess. And added to that, there's a reality show where people compete for a virtual child or maybe a real baby. It sounds very modern, very Black Mirror. I'm curious about it. A little disappointed it's not about genetic experiments. And I don't know about the reality show part, but you know what? I'm going to keep an open mind. This is a science fiction thriller, or so it says. So I'm going to be expecting a very fast-paced novel with lots of twists. That's what I look for in a thriller. So we'll see. We shall see, because I will pick it up and read it. But I want to know what books you would have picked based solely on their covers. Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.